What I remember about the release of Solo: A Star Wars Story is how quiet it was. We all knew what was about to happen, what Disney were about to do. Did we know ahead of time just how bad that movie would be? Perhaps. But no one said a word as it played on the big screen. Not when they ruined the mystique of Han Solo. Not when they impregnated the Millennium Falcon without its consent. Not when the soon-to-be Captain Solo and Chewbacca were placed in the shower together. And not when they turned General Calrissian into Pando Calrissian. There was not a single sound in the cinema as it played. Not a word. So, Tamara Morrison has his own show, does he? Yes! Oh wait, it's a Boba Fett series?
Oh my god, my insides are on fire!
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal NOMZ here, and I hope you enjoyed that little parody at the start, because if you can't tell, I'm a massive fan of Tamara Morrison and his work on past Star Wars media, including that of Battlefront 2 and, of course, the prequels. That said, I'm not excited, even in the slightest, for this Boba Fett series that's coming out, and I'll explain why in a second. But I gotta tell you, Tamara Morrison is just absolutely fantastic. He was born to play the Fetts in Star Wars, alright? And even though, continuity-wise, he's far too old to play Boba Fett, and Daniel Logan, the child actor who played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, would have been more suited and consistent to play the role, given how old Boba Fett should be at this point in the timeline, it is still great and nostalgic and kind of heartwarming to see Tamara Morrison step back into Star Wars and don the bounty hunter's armor once again. Yes, it's not the same bounty hunter's armor, but still. Also, Ming-Na Wen is joining him, and she's, like, always going to have a special place in my heart because she voiced Mulan, which is still to this day the greatest Disney movie ever made. Yes, really. But unfortunately, both of these actors, while I love them and while I'd like to support them, their characters are just so obnoxiously contrived to be placed in this scenario as a pairing, partners, and tossed into this spin-off series. The problem started back in The Mandalorian, where Boba Fett was supposed to return, and how he returned made absolutely zero sense at all. First, we had to accept the fact that he survived the Sarlacc pit and returned the Jedi. Yes, I know there was media written about that to appease the Boba Fett fanboys, and yes, I'll get to them, because oh boy, do I have a lot to say on that. But then we see that he's after his armor that he somehow lost, despite the fact that he was last seen wearing his armor. And so he tracked down Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, to the sacred Jedi planet where he confronted him about the armor, even though, again, why the fuck did he lose the armor? If it meant so much to him, because it was passed down by his father, supposedly. And along with that, they tied in Jango Fett with the Mandalorian lore by saying he was a foundling, which created even more confusion if you watch the Clone Wars.
All of our warriors were exiled to our moon, Concordia. They died out years ago.
Are you certain? I recently encountered a man who wore Mandalorian armor. Jango Fett.
Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter. How he acquired that armor is beyond me.
Your father was a foundling.
Yes. He even fought in the Mandalorian civil wars.
Okay, what the
But he could have just confronted Din Djarin on Tatooine, since he knew where he was and where he was going, and since he had somehow resurrected Ming-Na Wen's character Fennec with a robotic stomach of some kind that has a flap that just opens. It's really weird. Even though she was by all rights dead and should have died, and Boba Fett should have had no idea how to fucking repair her, and what the hell was he even fucking doing out in the desert in the middle of nowhere anyway? That said, he confronts Mando on the sacred Jedi planet, and he asks for the armor back, the armor that he owns, that by all rights should be his, instead of just taking it out of his Nando's unlocked ship. He could have just gone into the ship and taken the armor and skipped the whole fucking conversation, which is a dumpster fire in itself because it makes everyone look like an idiot. Not only that, but Boba Fett says, I owe allegiance to no one, but in the same scene makes a deal with Mando to cooperate and spare the child and keep the child safe as long as he agrees to the terms.
Are you Mandalorian?
I'm a simple man making his way through the galaxy.
Did you take the creed?
I give my allegiance to no one.
A few moments later.
The armor was given to my father, Django, by your forebears. In exchange, I guarantee the safety of the child, as well as your own.
Then our deal is complete.
Not quite.
How so?
We agreed, in exchange for the return of my armor, we will ensure the safety of the child.
The child's gone.
Until he is returned to you safely, we are in your debt. I give my allegiance to no one.
Also, remember, that deal of yours didn't actually happen. The Empire interrupted before you could finalize it or shake hands. You guys didn't actually agree to anything, and you just stole your armor back, which is the fucking thing you should have done in the first place. And then when the new Empire makes off with Grogu, and Mando is unable to give pursuit because Temuera Morrison is so godlike, he actually erased Mando's mind and made him forget his jetpack.
Let's all put down our weapons. Have a chat.
Tell her to drop the gun.
After you put down the jetpack.
Why?
Oh. That's why.
And also forgetting the fact that this jetpack can be remote controlled and brought to him at the click of a button. But then when Grogu's abducted, he's like, "We are bound by oath to you until the child is safe," even though that wasn't the deal. And even though in that very same episode, he says he swears allegiances to no one. Again, technically, this really isn't a part of Boba Fett's word. They just loosely tied it in because they had to include Boba Fett on Mando's adventure, give him a few cool scenes, advertise him well, and of course that cringeworthy end credit scene where they show him storming Jabba's palace. We'll get to that in a second. But much like Ahsoka Tano's appearance in The Mandalorian, even though her appearance was far better utilized, Boba Fett's appearance in The Mandalorian was just to set up his own fucking show. The Mandalorian, as a series, was essentially a collection of fucking advertisements to set up more shows that will also be advertisements for more shows, because that's the Disney formula now. And it's no coincidence that the fucking episode that Boba Fett showed up to bullshit his way into the Mandalorian plotline to make himself relevant, for the sake of setting up his own show, was the episode that made me quit The Mandalorian. That episode takes a giant steaming dump over any logical sense. And even though it was cool to see Temuera Morrison and Ming-Na Wen again, it just made their characters look fucking ridiculous. Was it cool to see Boba Fett shooting his blaster and taking out bad guys? Sure. And I'll admit, I did watch chapters 15 and 16 of The Mandalorian simply out of obligation. No, I will not be watching season 3. Fuck that. But I did finish that season at the very least. And I will say, Boba Fett did have some cool moments, like when he dropped the seismic charge out of the Slave One, and yes, it is called the Slave One still, Disney, fuck you. And I thought Temuera Morrison's dialogue as the character wasn't bad, wasn't terrible. He felt the part, he felt like a badass, but again, I was just wondering the whole time, why the fuck are you here, and why the hell are you still helping Mando when you owe him no allegiance? And that brings us to, well, the Book of Boba Fett. And with Jabba the Hutt gone, Boba Fett stormed the castle, took Jabba's throne, and now we have a show, because that's how it works in Disney Wars, I guess. Now let's get on to the actual trailer for the Book of Boba Fett, and I'll tell you why I think this is an incoming dumpster fire. Firstly, well, for reasons I've mentioned previously regarding the fact that this show is being built to accommodate the events and the changes to the character from The Mandalorian, by which I mean this trailer tries to portray Boba Fett in a manner that's unbecoming of what he's meant to be. Granted, he isn't meant to be much. He was just meant to be a bucket head to sell merch.
I remember my younger son saying, isn't it funny you put a bucket over your head, Dad, and, and people think you're rather cool.
Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
Human, yes. Origin, unknown. Planet, unknown. He was quite a special character. It's the mystery behind this uniform.
It was the fans who bred life into this character, but he was always meant to be just a professional bounty hunter who takes shit from no one, does his job, is professional, and isn't really bound by any morals other than the bounty hunter's code. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what that code is, just the fact that you do the job well, and then you move on to the next contract. Bounty hunters aren't exactly known for their moral standards. They're paid to kill whoever's on the contract. This is one of the reasons I had a problem with Mandalorian, after all, because they immediately turned him into a good guy, as well as a babysitter, and that's more or less what they're doing in this trailer, in this series. Boba Fett is now this upstanding, semi-respectable leader who's going to, quote, rule with respect, as opposed to how Jabba ruled, which was with fear and tyranny. Does that sound right to any of you?
I'm telling you guys, it's wrong. It's wrong! It's wrong!
And again, I guess this is somewhat consistent with what the Mandalorian did to the character, but that was inconsistent with what the character was in the first place. Not only that, but they said, you've taken over your former employer's empire. They're making it out like Jabba and Boba had this, like, long-standing relationship where Jabba had taken Boba under his wing or some shit like that. I'm pretty sure as a bounty hunter, Boba Fett had a lot of employers on a whole bunch of different planets, in different empires, in different races.
I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
But again, we gotta go back to fucking Tatooine, because as we all know by now, Disney can't come up with anything new, or even vaguely original. And two, again, it's gotta be Jabba and Jabba's palace because fan service. And they're gonna try and create a whole story out of that, and again, Fennec, Ming-Na Wen's character, what the fuck is she even doing here? She should be dead. This doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. And then it shows a couple of little action scenes and Boba Fett negotiating with the other outlaws on Tatooine, and they're all trying to figure out who's going to take charge and who's going to lead in Jabba's stead. But here's the thing, Jabba the Hutt died like 5 years ago, going by the Mandalorian timeline. Why has it taken this long for Boba Fett to go after his empire? You're telling me he needed the armor this whole time, but last I checked, he fell into the Sarlacc wearing that fucking armor. Why didn't he just get out and immediately seize the palace then and there? I'll admit, they got these like cool new shields that look like jackal shields from Halo, and they're literal ray shields that you can carry around with you. I mean, that's a cool design. I haven't really thought about it enough to see if it breaks anything. I don't know why Tatooine outlaws would have technology that advanced. I mean, yeah, they have blasters and shit, but things like lightsabers and ray shields, it isn't really commonplace over there. Whatever, I guess. I'll accept it. We don't really learn much more besides that. I'm just saying that this feels wrong. This is not Boba Fett. They're clearly changing him into a good guy to appease the fanboys. And let's talk about the Boba Fett fanboys for a second. There's a reason I coined the phrase Boba Fett pajama-wearing ass clowns in my prequel videos, because it was meant to outline just how shallow those fans were, because that's exactly what Disney is trying to cater to with the very existence of this fucking show. Because it was just the very fucking frame of this character, although a bit more overweight, slapped back into his armor that he wore in episodes 5 and 6 for fans to blow their fucking nutsacks all over the screen and give The Mandalorian, despite its worst episodes, complete unending fucking shimmering praise. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian is the dumbest fucking episode in that entire series. Yes, really. But because it had Boba Fett flying around again, people were singing its praises from the fucking mountaintops, and they would not listen to reason. These are the same fans that Disney are banking on to fill their fucking piggy banks again and keep the franchise limping on. Granted, it has like 3 broken legs out of 4 at this point, but it's still limping along. Or should I say crawling? It's crawling along, and it's the fans that were obsessed over a bucket-wearing nobody back in episodes 5 and 6 that are going to fucking keep it crawling on in its miserable state. Please, for the love of God, hold yourselves to a higher standard. Recognize this for what it is. A shallow corporate cash grab that spits in the face of what this character was, what this franchise was, and that's all it's ever going to be. I'm not expecting any miracles. I'd have to ignore just about the entirety of Boba Fett's inclusion in The Mandalorian to take this show at all seriously, because the contrived nonsense for how he got to this point in the first place is some of the worst writing in the Star Wars franchise. Yes, I do love Tamira Morrison. Yes, I do love Ming-Na Wen. Do I hope this show is good? Absolutely, I fucking hope it's good. You know how much I miss enjoying Star Wars? I gave The Bad Batch a shot, and while that show wasn't a complete dumpster fire, it still disappointed me. And just about everything but has been a dumpster fire aside from Rogue One, which I actually really like Rogue One, alright? So Disney, again, and I've said this many times, Disney can make good Star Wars if they just fucking put the effort in. But I don't think the Book of Boba Fett is going to be that. I wish Tamira Morrison, Ming-Na Wen the best of luck. I hope the show is just more than shallow, uninspired fan service to cater to the bottom of the barrel of the Star Wars fandom. Will I give the show a chance? Perhaps. But I'll most likely be giving the Book of Boba Fett a very hard pass. Or to put it more accurately, Cobra Kai for life, motherfuckers.